Authors Press.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Richardson, and I'm from Authors Press. Today is March 13th, 2023, and welcome to another fantastic virtual interview. I'm gathered here today with Dr. Francis Pitard, the author of the book Heirs of a Lost Race. Before we begin the interview, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your book as well?
Well, by trade, I am a physicist, a scientist. My first trade was nuclear physics. I worked for 6 years for the French Atomic Energy, and that is what took me to the South Pacific, where the action of the book is. After that, I worked for the mining company mainly. I'm still working for the mining companies to do consulting, teaching, auditing, and as a hobby, I write historical novels and also biography of my old aunt that was in the French Resistance. Okay, so this is how I got to the idea of writing those books for pleasure, as a hobby.
What inspired the idea for your book, Heirs of a Lost Race? Where did the idea for that come from?
I was based in the South Pacific for my work, and I got interested by the philosophy of ancient Polynesians that were migrating from one island to the next more than 1,000 years ago. And in their philosophy, there is a motto that I love, and that got me to the idea of writing the book. The motto of Polynesian is very simple, and we should teach that to our children, is who you are, it's really irrelevant. What is very important in your life is the person you want to be. And that is a beautiful concept, and I think we don't teach that enough to our children.
It's great. I don't think it's taught often enough either, if at all, if it's taught even at all. So is the final product book, the final end product, is it different than you first envisioned it?
A little. The concept is the same. It didn't change very much, but it's obvious. As you write a book like this, there is an interesting thing that happened to you. It's the characters that you create are evolving, and sometimes they evolve against your will. So you have to adapt the story to the new development, the new idea you get from them. It's an interesting concept. It never occurred to me that the character will evolve against your will sometime, and you have to adapt because the new idea you got is too good and you cannot let it go.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes the initial idea for the book is not even close to the end product, and sometimes that's for the better because you never know what kind of evolution and what kind of growth your story and your book will go through as you develop it.
Exactly, and that happened to me for the 3 books I wrote. It was consistent every time.
Okay. Heirs of a Lost Race. What does that title mean? What's the significance of it?
Heirs, they were in the story. It's a contact in the middle of the Pacific between 2 kinds of people. If there are a few people that were coming from Peru, they were going away from Peru because they were in danger from some other kind of people that did not like them. So they went on a raft and got across the Pacific. And then, so they are the lost race. They were just a few to go on those rafts. And you all heard the story of Kon-Tiki from Tore Heyerdahl, a Norwegian author that is well known. And then, as they go across the Pacific, they encounter a new kind of people, which are much more people. They are the Polynesians. And I call them the heirs of the lost race. So the Polynesians are the heirs, and the lost race is the people from Peru.
I know that you said that you were inspired by this book while you were studying. How much research did you need to do for this book?
It was a long process. Heirs of the Lost Race took me a long time to initiate, digest, modify. It took me about 10 years to work on that book. It was my very first novel.
Oh, so this was your very first debut novel?
Yes.
Was it your first ever book that you ever wrote, or just your first novel?
No, it was not my first book. I wrote, before that, I wrote a lot of notes for myself. I always take notes when I look in nature, you know, and also I used to write technical books before I did historical novels. So it was not my first time to write, but it was my first time to do an historical novel.
Okay. Who would you say is your ideal reader, or who's your target audience? Who do you want to read this book?
My target audience is it's all across the board. It can start with teenagers, it can young people, young couple, but also elder people, older people. It's all across the board. And what I want to be my audience, it's mainly people that are looking not only for a good story. I want them to take their time to read the book, to read between the lines, because it addresses universal values that are very important for the search of peace. The idea to write the book came during 9/11.
And was that like during 9/11, or just before, or just after?
Well, on 9/11, my book was halfway written, but when I witnessed what was happening on 9/11, it confirmed to me that book was very important.
So that event in the course of history was very important to the development of your book?
Yes.
Okay. And to add on to my previous question, is there a specific group or audience that you expect to read your book? My assumption, from the interviewer point of view, I would assume that lots of younger readers between the age of 20 and 25 in college would be my guess.
Yes, indeed. That goes back to the motto of the people from Peru in that book, which is a very interesting motto. They were very peaceful people, and their motto was, you should not fight with your adversary, and make sure that your adversary never become your enemy. They were beautiful promoters of peace, and I want to put that across to many readers, because it breaks my heart when I see a young couple that is always fighting for futilities. They should protect their love in a much better way, because when you start fighting for futility, you destroy yourself slowly, day by day, and it's a very negative thing to do.
I agree. When you have to spend your life fighting to survive, you cannot thrive. I am a firm believer of that.
Yep.
what are your intentions with this book? Why did you write this book?
To put across the fact, number one, the fact that where the action is in South Pacific, in the islands of Tahiti and some other islands, it's one of the most beautiful places on the surface of the earth. Beautiful blue lagoons. It's a paradise where you can swim, snorkel. The vegetation is awesome. The people are beautiful. And, it's an inspiring place. And that is why I put so much emphasis on describing the island, the fauna, the flora, everything, and so you can feel it when you read the book. You can feel nature around you.
Definitely. I can see what you're saying, that this book came to you out of inspiration. I know that you said that this is your first ever historical novel. Is there a specific impact you want your novel to have on readers?
I want to inspire them on values that are there are values in life that are universal. It does not matter if the action is 1,000 years ago, today, or tomorrow. The values are the same. And we tend to forget many of those values the way we educate children today.
Are there any parts to this book that you connect to on a deeper level? Any parts of this book that you feel are significant to you?
Yes, of course, because, some of the, I do a lot of snorkeling, diving. I am a lover of the blue lagoons in the South Pacific. And all along my life, I had some adventures and some close call with Mother Nature, some animals. And I put those close call, they are anecdotes in the book. And I am very close to those because I remember the detail like if it was yesterday.
I see. That's beautiful. And I'm sure that readers are able to really put themselves in your shoes and feel what you felt in that moment.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What would you say was your biggest struggle while you were writing this book?
The character changing against my will.
Almost like they grew, like they're really people.
They go and you wake up in the middle of the night, you say, oh my God, this is not what I planned, but this is too good, so I have to adapt. And that was a little bit of a struggle because it was happening all the time.
I always applaud authors when they feel that that's happening, because it means that that character is no longer a character. They've really embodied being a part of the story,
Yes, they became part of yourself. You are the person.
You gave them life.
Yeah.
How did you feel while you were writing this book? What kind of emotions did it evoke?
It was an inspiration for me to do more meditation. Go on my own, walk, go in the mountains, look at the sea, go in a boat, swim, and meditate more because I thought it was important for my characters to be evolving the proper way.
Are you pleased with the general outcome of this book?
Yes, I'm very pleased. And I will not change anything.
I was just getting ready to ask if you'd want to change anything if you could. I do remember that you said that this book is not like the initial idea for it, but you wouldn't change it anyways, and that means that it grew as a story and it evolved, which is a good thing.
Yes, and it planted. I don't want to change anything, but it certainly planted the seeds for the sequel, which is the second book, Rapin with Settlers.
What's next for this book? Do you plan to build onto it further?
No, it is what it is. It's sealed in time and values. But the second book, which is Rapin with Settlers, we will do a video in a few weeks with that book as well. That is the ultimate achievement, the natural evolution of Heirs of a Lost Race.
So, Heirs of a Lost Race is the first book, and then Rapin with Settlers would be the sequel.
It's a sequel, yes. Okay. And that's the story of Easter Island. How did they got here? Why did they do what they did? What kind of people were involved? And they are the characters of a Lost Race.
Do you have any other book-related thoughts that you want to touch on before we wrap up the interview? I've only got a couple more questions, so.
I have many ideas for books. It's not my last book, I have been starting to write books for children. When I say children, I'm talking about anywhere between 10 and 18, teens. And I think they need some good story to inspire them when they grow up to become adults. And this is my next goal, okay?
And that actually kind of covered one of the questions I was going to ask next is, what are your goals in the future? So thank you for saying that. And for my final question, I just want to ask, do you have any advice for Authors Press that could help us better our services?
One thing I would like to do, and I know it's not always in your control, but I know it depends on how many good reviews I get for my book. When we reach a certain number of reviews, I will like for Authors Press to try to make a stronger effort to put my books in bookstore on the shelf. For example, you can go to Barnes Nobles, ask for my book, and it's in their computer. But I want more. I want the book to be on the shelf. So when people get in the store, they can see it. And that will be, if this happens, we will be able to sell much more books, in my opinion.
Okay, I see. So you'd like us to look into expanding our physical outreach?
Yes. It's the only way to sell books, frankly.
I completely understand. Yeah, and we'll definitely look into doing that. So
I have been willing to invest quite a lot of money with Authors Press, but I would like for Authors Press to invest in me so I can continue to invest in them.
I see. So it's like a circle.
Yes.
Okay. That's all the questions that I have for you today. So thank you so much for meeting with me to discuss your book, Heirs of a Lost Race. It's not like I thought it would be. Looking at the cover, I expected it to be more educational and less of a story. So it's very interesting that it's more of your experiences as well.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to Authors Press either via phone or email, and we're always here to help.
I probably will by email.
Okay, yeah. This has been Dr. Francis Pitard and Nicole Richardson. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Okay.